Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from July 9th, 2021. I'm recording this on January 7th, 2022. As always, I give those dates so you know when this information is actually relevant because the market is always moving and changing. As always, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. Each week they put out a list. They both put out lists of 10 books. So we're looking at both of those. So we can have as many as 20 books. This week we got 18 books to talk about. We do this so that we understand what factors made these books hot, what factors have affected them since. Would you be better off being patient, or should you have jumped on them when they were? So without further ado, let's dig into these books and see if we can learn anything. So first up, we got Faust #1. This hit the list because it was optioned by Sony for an animated movie or series. I forget now which they said, but it was definitely animated. This is definitely not a series for kids, despite the animation side of things. Back then, that caused this 90s book to jump all the way, or 1989 book to jump all the way up to $50+ for raw copies. Now, raw copies are costing 10 to 30. So this definitely turned into a trap. This book is backed way up. Maybe we see this. My odds are I don't think we will, but you never know. If we do, it's going to probably still be a while. Yeah, this one has definitely not been worth the investment if you tried to get it when it was hot. With that was our only option news of the week, which was pretty typical in terms of performance by option news. Next up, we got some covers. We got X-Men #1, the J. Scott Campbell Rogue negative space variant that was limited to 2,500 copies. So this is very similar to a lot of the John Tyler Christopher ones. This is J. Scott Campbell doing Rogue. This book was $165 raw on average right after it was released. Now it's running 100 to 175 raw. 9.8 will cost you $3 to $4.50, so pretty good range on both of these in terms of what you can get for it. But it's definitely down a little bit. Definitely a little bit of an I'll be back. Still in the same area, just down just slightly. So definitely one you can get a deal on if you're patient and look for it. But a great cover, but definitely not one that's going to be cheap to get, even with it being down a little bit. Next, we have Trials of Ultraman #4. This is an Art Adams 1 in 25. Not sure exactly what was going on with this one. It's not what I would consider a really great cover, at least to me. But apparently it was going for $35 to $40 right after release, which isn't even really double ratio. So that typically means it's going to crash back, and this book did. It's now a $10 to $15 book, so even less than ratio at this point. Wasn't sure what made this one, people kind of jump on this one, maybe just because it was a low print book. They thought it'd be scarce, but not one of Art Adams' better efforts, in my opinion. This one definitely turned into a trap. With that, we got God Killer, Tomorrow's Ashes #1. This is the Leila De Lucha, 1 in 50. Or no, sorry, 1 in 30. I looked at that wrong. Raw copies back then were going for $60. Now raw copies have cost you 10 to 40. So kind of a sexy cover, kind of a little bit of a giving you a Harley and Ivy kind of vibe, I think, with these two characters. Clearly what they're trying to go for, but this one, despite all that, this one didn't hold. I've never really heard much about the series. This one also turned into a bit of a trap. The next two books I'll go with the same series. First up, we have Stray Dogs #2, the third print, the Evil Dead homage. So Stray Dogs has loved to do the horror movie homages on its covers. This third print was going for $15 at release. Now it's $5 to $12. A 9.8 will only cost you $30 to $60. So basically book plus slabbing. So there's not a ton of demand for this one right now. Another book that's turned into an I'll be back. Definitely down a little bit from that 15-ish on average that it was before. Now it's more like $8 on average. So next we got Stray Dogs #5. This is the Ryan Kincaid The Shining variant. So this was a kind of I believe was actually a store exclusive, I think. Raw copies on this were going for $100 at release. Now it's a $30 to $50 book. 9.8 will only cost you $100 to $125. So another one that's turned into a trap. We've been everything here at the beginning of the list is definitely dropping back down, and this is no different. So a lot of interest in this series, but not holding values necessarily on all these different variants. With that, we're going to move into a little bit of comic buzz, I guess. Not sure exactly. They didn't really say what caused this to hit the list. This is He-Man and the Masters of the Universe number 18 from 2014. And the claim here is this is the first full appearance of She-Ra in a standard U.S. comic. But she appears to appear earlier in this run. So I'm a little confused on exactly how this is a key. She definitely appeared a bunch of times in like UK versions, but she appears to even appear earlier in this run. So I'm not sure how it's still her first full appearance. But anyway, this book was going for $150 plus back then. Now it's $50 to $75 raw. 9.8 will cost you $350, $400. So another one that's turned into a trap. First appearance of She-Ra, if it would be a pretty cool book, but I'm not sure this really qualifies in my opinion, but I guess people are definitely still after it. Just not nearly at those rates from back in the summer. With that, we're going to move into a little DC TV. We got Batman number 475. This is the first appearance of Renee Montoya. This book hit back before the Birds of Prey movie. She was a character in the Birds of Prey movie, but it hit this time because there was a casting call that she was going to be in the Batwoman show. And it caused this book to not really jump that much. They were basically saying 5 to 15 even back then. Just a bunch of sales. A 9.8 went for $200. This is still a $5 to $15 book, although 9.8 is backed all the way up to $100. But the vast majority of sales here are on the raw side. Not a ton of people have slabbed this book. So it's been pretty steady, and I'll be back a little bit. You could definitely do better, particularly obviously on the 9.8 side. Cool character, but definitely a book that there's a lot of, and there hasn't been a ton of demand on for her. The other DC TV book is a repeat from last week. It is Door to Nightmare number 1, first appearance of Madame Xanadu. And this had rumors that she might appear in like a Justice League Dark series on HBO Max, or she might even get her own series. There were a couple different rumors here going related to this character. Caused raw copies to jump up to $100 on average. 9.8 hit $1,200. Now raw copies are costing anywhere from $20 to $99. Mostly kind of in the $40-ish range, but definitely a wide range on these depending on condition. No recent 9.8 sales to go by. 9.6s are only costing $180 to $250, which usually would mean 9.8 would be a little bit less, but I don't think there's many 9.8s in this book, period. So that may still be pushing up around $1,000 there. But overall, this has definitely been an I'll be back and down a little bit. So with that, so that's 9 books. So the last 9 books are all MCU related, and either in spec or in truth. First up, we have, of the MCU books, we have Defenders number 18. This is the first appearance of the Wrecking Crew. So this basically hit the list because there's rumors that the Wrecking Crew might show up in the She-Hulk show. So it's potentially, like, we know we're getting like Titania and some other stuff. So there's rumors that we're going to get the Wrecking Crew. Raw copies for this were $75 back then. A 9.6 hit $12.50. Now a raw copy will cost you $15 to $100, mostly on average, again, down around $40, $50 on this book. No recent like high grade slab sales on this one, so another one that's turned into a bit of an I'll be back. This would be kind of I could see this group actually fitting with that show. I don't know if we'll get them or not, but it's supposed to be kind of a half-hour comedy lawyer thing. I could see them totally fitting in here. But we'll see, because they are kind of not exactly really been taken serious kind of villains. So they could fit in with the style of the show I think they're going for. We'll see. Next, we got Amazing Spider-Man number 656. First appearance of the Mark II spider armor. So this is kind of a black, obviously you can see on the cover here, this was a black spider armor that was in there. Basically, there was a Lego toy set for the No Way Home or Doctor Strange. I can't remember which one. I think it was for No Way Home, that had him in had Spider-Man in a black suit, obviously, which turned out to just be his suit inside out. So it wasn't really a new armor, but that's why people were specking on this book, because, oh, he was going to be in a new armor for the No Way Home. Back then, raw copies, they only jumped up to like $15. A 9.8 hit 100. This is still going $5 to $25. 9.8 still going for just over $100, like with the most recent one being $110. So this one's been pretty steady, basically worth it. Even though this is not actually the suit that really appeared in the No Way Home movie. Next, we have Infamous Iron Man #1. This is the first appearance of Tony Stark as an AI, and this was being fueled by rumors that that Robert Downey Jr. had signed on to come back in some form to the MCU, which people thought, oh, well, he'll come back as an AI, and expected he was going to be in the Ironheart show or in Armor Wars as an AI, is what sparked this book. Back then, raw copies were hitting $35, and 9.8 was hitting $250. Now, raw copies will cost you $10 to $25. 9.8 costs you $75 to $175. If he does come back, this is obviously the way it's probably going to happen, but this is definitely cooled off. There's not a lot of talk about this right now, so definitely another I'll be back kind of book that you could probably, now might not be a bad time if you grab one for $10-15. Might be a decent spec at that point, if you think you might get it, if we might get him just even briefly as an AI in one of these shows. Next, we got Avengers #2. This is the Alex Ross variant with several different versions of Kang on the cover. This was all in anticipation of the Loki show, that we thought we were getting Kang, which we did get a version of him in the show. Back then, raw copies were going for $5, but a 9.8 hit $50. So not really a key here. It's just this cover. Now raw copies will cost you $5 to $20. 9.8 will hit you $70. So basically, you can argue this is actually up and worth it. I will say that the book, once he appeared in the show, the book went significantly higher than this and then backed up to this. So, but from this stage, if you got in on it on the front side, you definitely did pretty well. If you got in on the back side, not so much. So, next we got Thor #365, first full appearance of Throgg. I don't know how many times we've done these things related to Throgg. People hoping this is going to happen. This book hits the list, it crashes, it hits the list, it crashes. Anyway, back then this book was going for $30 to $50. 9.8 was hitting $200. Because if you spotted it close enough, you could see like a jar with what appears to be Throgg in it during the Loki show in the background. So that's basically all this was off of. Now it's a $5 to $20 book for a raw copy. Definitely turned into a trap. There wasn't any more there to it. So this one definitely fell back. Next we have Avengers, the Terminatrix Objective, #1. This is the first appearance of Alioh. And this is basically the giant cloud monster that appeared in the Loki show, if you watch that. Back then, raw copies were $30 to $50. Now, a raw copy will cost you $1 to $15. 9.8 only costs you $100. Yeah, this is definitely way, way down from a $30 to $50 book down to basically on average under $10. This turned into a dumpster fire. Don't know if we'll ever get this character again. This is why, particularly if it's like minor characters or cameo appearances, the last thing you want to do is buy them when they appear. So this book definitely is driving that point home here. Next, we have Avengers #196, first full appearance of Taskmaster. This was actually on the list the week of the release of Black Widow. So at the point they were putting this on the list, and the sales they were talking about were before people had actually seen the movie. At this point, spoilers, but this is not the version of Taskmaster that we got, or at least not this traditional version. It's more of like the Ultimate Universe version. There's a female version in that universe anyway. Raw copies of this book, though, back then were up to $270 on average. A 9.8 hit $2,300. Now a 9.8 is $1,000. Raw copies are run you $50 to $150. This book definitely turned into a huge trap because this is not exactly what we got. People were hoping for the traditional Taskmaster, and we did not get that. So this book is definitely backed way up because he did not appear in Black Widow. Next, we have Inhumans number 5, first appearance of Elena Belova. We did get Elena, and we also just recently, in November and December, got her in the Hawkeye show as well. Back then, a 9.8 was hitting 800. So, despite that, in the lead up to her first appearance, it was hitting $800. We got her in the movie, she was great. We got her in the Hawkeye show, she was great. Now 9.8 will still only cost you $5 to $650. Raw copies will cost you somewhere between $100 and $200, condition and sale and that kind of stuff. So this has definitely turned into an I'll be back down. Anyway, so once you got past the anticipation of her appearing, was still greater than her appearance, what it costs now after she's part of the MCU, even though she was great. So there you go. That's maybe a little bit of a lesson learned. Not to buy in the lead up, again, even if the character is going to be around and used multiple times. And then last book of the week is Tales of Suspense, number 57. This is the first appearance of Hawkeye. This had to do, we were getting trailers for the Hawkeye show at that point. So even though he wasn't in the Black Widow movie, we were getting trailers. 5.0 hit an all-time high of $1,500 back then. A 7.5 hit an all-time high of $3,250. And that's basically where those two grades are setting. 5.0s are still going right around $1,500. The most recent 7.5 went for $3,150, so down a little bit, but basically right in that same range. Raw copies on this book are going to cost you $3,000 to $1,000. So this one has been steady. I put straight cash because I think this is a straight cash book long term. I think it's been somewhat undervalued, but maybe not. I could be wrong in saying that. I mean, that's what I'm saying about right now, but I would guess, depending on, I don't know that we're going to get another Hawkeye series with him. I don't think he's done, but I would guess he's maybe going to be pulled back and not used as much. So this book might actually back up a little bit over the next year or so from these heights of the show, unless we get something else with him. But long term, this book will definitely be higher than this, I think. So that was this week's list. A ton of MCU stuff, but despite that, a ton of books down. Only one book was could be considered up, and it was just worth it, just slightly up. A couple of steady books, but yeah, down this week. Not another really bad week as we're coming down from the heights of last spring and summer. The books just aren't holding the crazy values that we're getting to at that point. So I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time.